You're listening to The Janchi Show, hosted by three Korean American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Janchi Show. It is just I, KJ, because we all just got back from California, and we're all tired, and I guess I drew the short end of the stick by, working from home and not having any kids and that kind of stuff. So it's just me. Before we get into it too much, I just wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to AKA San Francisco and all of the AKA California chapters who brought us out to be their big headliner on the night. Definitely give them a follow at AKA San Francisco if you're in the Bay Area, or if you want to be like apparently all of Minnesota and just fly out and crash the party. It was really wild to meet a bunch of adoptees from really all over the place, even some from across the pond, for what I thought was just a regional event. So that was really cool. And I'm sure that if you were following the right people, you either heard and saw lots about it on your social media handles, or you totally missed it because who knows who you follow, honestly. But today, we have a really fantastic interview with Katie Ginella. Katie Ginella comes from San Diego by way of Atlanta, Georgia, and just shares with us her journey in this whole adoption space. We talk a lot about motherhood. We talk a lot about giving grace, and her story really breaks down in me some monolithic ideas that I might have held about our own community. And so it was a really, really fantastic interview, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. So without further ado, I'm going to roll that tape.
Welcome back to the Janchi Show. We are here with our interview portion of the show. We have a very special guest today, Katie Ginella. Thank you so much for showing up and for joining. I know showing up because we are doing video this time. But
anytime. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here. I'm glad I showed up.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for showing up to your scheduled interview time. Really appreciate it.
I didn't pick it or anything. It's fine.
Yeah, it's not like you were like, this time actually works best for me. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Hilarious.
Well, we have kids. You know how it is. It's school time, right? School's just started. So,
yep.
But so I'm in that mode. But no, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. And we are happy to have you here. Like all the shows, we start with pretty much, your introduction, and you can tell us your story as much or as little as you would like to.
Okay. I currently am in San Diego. I'm 39, and I was adopted at 5 months old from Eastern Child Welfare Society. When I was 5 months old, I was actually supposed to come at 3 months. I got sick, which I hear is kind of common, and came over at 5 months. My parents are extremely Catholic, very traditional Catholic. So I was baptized by fire right when I was adopted, just Catholic school, mass twice a week. I was an altar server, knee deep in Catholicism. And I think that played a big role in the rest of my life and my choices, and definitely in my dealing with adoption. I tell people that I feel like if I was to adopt a baby from Pakistan or Russia, I would immediately indoctrinate the culture of where they came from into their daily life. And my parents didn't really feel like that was important. I do kind of blame Eastern a little bit. They didn't have the resources for my parents back then like they do now, but I kind of feel like it's sort of common sense too. My parents thought once they adopted me, I was white. That's it. So, there's no eating Korean food. I didn't hold a chopstick until I was in college. I would ask to try on Korean clothing, go to Korean school, and they said, no, you're American. So that was a little tough growing up, especially in Georgia, where it was very suburban. Any school I ever went to, because it was all Catholic schools, I was the only Asian. And I grew up desperately wanting to be just a white blonde chick from Georgia. So that was difficult. I mean, looking back now, I'm so happy I'm different. And I try to tell my kids that being different is so much better. But, then it was really tough. And I think that growing up, you don't really, now we have like Dr. Phil and TikTok, which teaches you like, this is what this mental health problem is and this mental health problem. But back then I didn't understand, like attachment and abandonment type issues that I feel like we all kind of have being adopted. We don't trust easily and we're afraid everyone's going to leave us. So we kind of grip onto the people that we love, almost suffocating them sometimes, I feel like. And I went to high school, graduated high school, went to college, and I got pregnant from a guy that I'd really just met when I was 19. And I immediately thought, well, this guy is giving me attention. He must love me. So I immediately clung on to him and got married, knowing it was not the right idea. Married him at 21, had 2 more kids. And looking back, I know that it was definitely because of I need someone to love me and just be there all the time for me and just show up, all the time for me. And even though he didn't, the bare minimum made me feel like that, So I left a 9-year marriage. It was extremely abusive and I took it because I just thought, Catholic roots, you don't get divorced. You just kind of make stuff happen. You work it all out. And I got divorced and I thought, well, I'm 29 and I have 3 kids. So I guess I'll just become like a dog lady. I'll just adopt a bunch of dogs. I'll just like live in the country somewhere in Georgia. Like no guy's going to want a chick with 3 kids, right? So I'll just call it a day. And then I met my now husband and he basically adopted my daughter. And 2 of the 3 kids live with us full time. My other son, we share custody, and then we have a baby together. And luckily, he's done wonderful things for my daughter and been a huge support system for both of us trying to figure out and navigate all this. Moving from Georgia, Florida to San Diego has been a giant culture shock.
Really?
Being in Atlanta, there was like no Asians. And like today, it was my son's first day of first grade. And I showed up and I was like, holy shit. It's all Asian. It is literally all.
You're like, there's no diversity in the other direction. I don't understand.
Right? My husband even said, "I'm the minority," and I was like, "Yeah, bitch, how's it feel?" But like his class, there's 24 kids, and there's only 4 non-Asian children in his class. It's wild. So it's cool. It's great. But like my daughter says, you experience reverse. We are not white, and we are not Asian, so we're kind of in this gray area that kind of stinks. We don't speak Korean, which I totally wish I did. My daughter has taught herself a lot of it, which is cool.
Nice.
But it's like this weird, they look at you and they're like, okay, so we know you're not a real deal, but we know you're not white. So where do we place you, kind of thing. So yeah, but moving here has been good. Best food, best weather, best beaches. But that's been a little difficult adjusting.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, a lot of what you said, I was thinking, gosh, that's exactly how I felt when I was being raised in Oklahoma too, very white. And I was trying to figure out, why my parents didn't add some culture into raising me and things like that as well. Because they did have resources. I mean, yeah, they didn't have internet. We had, I joke on the show that we had Britannica, encyclopedia, but,
Yeah.
the agency should have had information about our countries, about our places of birth, and for them not to provide more information or at least some resources or things, then at least as far as I know, they didn't get anything other than like, goodbyes and like that. I don't think they had any packets about Korea. And I really wish, that there was more introduction. And my parents, even today now, of course, after I've started this podcast and all the new, areas that I've gone into, they continually say to me, like they wish and they regret not introducing that culture to me more when I was a kid. And it hurts me because it wasn't my fault, and I don't think it was their fault. It was just the unfortunate system at the time. It was all about assimilation, blend in, not about, education and, respect your culture. So, are you, you said it's a big change from Florida Georgia, Florida to California. How has that also been for your kids? Do you see, changes in their lifestyles and stuff? And are they like, happier as well? And are you happier? And what is that like, making that kind of a move?
I think we're all happier now. I think it took some adjustment. It's been almost 3 years. I think it just takes a couple of years to adjust.
Yeah,
I do miss Southern food and Southern hospitality. Oh my God. Whenever I go back and see my parents, the first stop I go to is Waffle House because I'm obsessed with Waffle House. So good. But I think, one of my friends told me, and this totally changed my perspective. She said, San Diego will never be Atlanta and Atlanta will never be San Diego. So you got to get over it. You got to stop comparing. You've got to just appreciate where you are and move on. And I was like, you know what? That's totally a good mindset to have.
You're like,
so
I guess
as soon as I did
that bad.
I know. I mean, the food is pretty freaking great here, but I just miss home, but I also think making me move out of my comfort zone and doing something different was really good for me for growth. And going back to a little bit what we talked about with our parents, I've done this thing and it embarrasses my kids so much. But whenever we're out and I see an adoptee with their parent, their American parent, I immediately cry every time. I cry like in a second. And we were just in Ireland and my daughter and I were in Urban Outfitters in Dublin. Like, of course, we go to the American store in Ireland, right? So we're there and my daughter wants to try some stuff on. So I was like, okay, cool. So I'm standing out in the dressing room and I see a little girl. She's probably 13 or 14 with her mom. And I was like, oh God. And my daughter was like, oh God, oh no, like you're going to do it again. And I was like, I can't help it. I get so emotional because I think I know what they're thinking, right? Like I feel so weird in this body and everybody knows I'm adopted and I kind of don't know what's going on inside, right? So I like beelined for her mom and I sat down next to her on this couch I'm waiting for her. And I said, your daughter is beautiful. And she said, thank you. And I said, so is she adopted? And she said, yeah. And by the end of our daughters trying stuff on 20 minutes later, we're both bawling on the couch. And I was like, I'm so sorry I did this to you. Like on a day you're shopping and having fun with your daughter. But I think that when we see anybody, when you see somebody who you feel like is going through the same trauma as you have or you are, you just feel like these heartstrings pulled, And I do think it's easier for me to get through that, coming full circle here, living in San Diego where there's so many Asians. And when I see an Asian, I'm not like, oh my God, are you adopted? What's going on with you? Where are you from? What's your name? So it is a little easier and acceptance is much better here in Florida. We were called chink a lot, of course. Our neighbors asked if we spoke English to my white husband. So that was interesting. But yeah, here there's just a lot more acceptance, which is great.
It's nice to find community like that, and to be able to blend in. I just got back from a trip to Korea, the second time that I've been back. And the biggest thing for me is the ability to just exist, kind of take the mask off that you develop and wear when you have to navigate predominantly white space. And that's the only space that you know. And I think a big part of the identity journey for adoptees is being able to find that space. And I know a lot of us won't have that opportunity or don't get the privilege of being able to relocate to somewhere that has, a even more diverse community of people, not even just other Asian people, but just not predominantly white. I think it is such a huge profound thing to be able to find yourself in a place that not only other people look like you, but everybody looks different, and I think that is an opportunity to grow. And for some people, it's like, it can be scary. It can be scary to find yourself in that space too. You talked about how other Asian folks have been clocking you as not real Asian or not really, really Asian. And I just wanted to say that, one, you are really Asian. Your whole family's really Asian. And don't ever let anybody tell you differently. It's just a different experience. Like your friend said, living in Atlanta and living in San Diego are just it's just different. It's not like you can't necessarily, you can play the comparative game, but it gets difficult at a certain point because it's like, they are so entirely opposite, literally geographically, but then culturally, the types of community that are there. How have you found yourself just engaging with culture specifically now that you find yourself having to navigate when other Asian people are trying to maybe label you as something that you don't necessarily feel yourself? How do you feel yourself like finding ways and navigating the different aspects of the culture that you want to take part in?
Well, just yesterday, the kids and I went to Korean barbecue. My husband was traveling still, so we went to Korean barbecue because it's so delicious here. And the server, we ordered, and I order with my American accent. I don't, obviously can't speak. And she looked at me and was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, number 27, and I feel myself apologizing, like overly apologizing, because I don't know if it's rude. I don't know if it's disrespectful, or if they look at me as a joke. So I just constantly am apologizing. And that's difficult, because it's not my fault. It's not her fault either for being confused why I look like I'm Korean and I don't speak Korean. That's actually really hard to navigate. I find that the only culture I really get is actually from my daughter. She's 19 and she is obsessed with K-pop, K-dramas. She has literally Duolingo taught herself Korean. She can read Korean off of, when we go shopping in K-Town here. Like, it's amazing. That's my only culture. I wish I had more time to kind of sit down and dive in a little bit more, but 4 kids and a million jobs, and I just don't have that. But that's why next year for my 40th birthday, we are going to Korea. I started this process 10 years ago, maybe more, maybe 11. I was in television and commercial print for a really long time. And I was filming with Discovery Channel a show about them helping me find my birth family and then me helping other people find theirs. And it was amazing. I was getting divorced at the time. I thought, this is a great new start. So they did a lot of background checking information about my birth family. They interviewed the kids and I. They got B-roll, of documents I have. And the last minute, I pulled the plug. It was just too many life events happening at one time. So I do know she's alive. She's married. She has kids. I do know the city she's in. Her name and things like that, but I just never communicated with her. So I said, you know what, for my 40th birthday, 30th or 40, I'm going to go to Korea and try to find her. And my daughter was born on my birthday, same weight, same length. Wow. And she's literally my twin. And it's really important to me, and to her and to my other kids and my husband to just go back and kind of trace those steps. And even if I don't meet her, just kind of being there and immersing in that culture for a couple of weeks, seeing what it's like.
That's super cool. I really want to hear more about like kind of what you're hoping to accomplish in that trip. But if we could go back, one of the things that struck me when you were telling your story was you said that your parents, when they adopted you, were like, well, you're white now, which I think is you actually doing some decoding, because the coded version of that language is like, well, you're American now, right? And I think it's so interesting. Like so many adoptees, especially like in the kind of wave that we were adopted in, are raised to be quote unquote American, but really the coded language is like white by default. Right. And I'm curious, what's been your journey with Koreanness and with being adopted as like a more than just like a fact of your life, but as an identity shaper for you?
I think I'm really good at burying things, putting them in a box and not thinking about them. I think that's how I got, I think that's how I, survived being a teen mom and then getting divorced and going through all that we went through with the kids. And, I think that I have kind of put it off. And so now I'm really trying to sit and think on it and be with those feelings. That's part of why I said, okay, I've got to mark a date, buy plane tickets and do it. I think that gets me to really sit down and think in those moments. I don't know what I'm expecting. I'm trying to have zero expectations, to be honest with you. I don't want to be disappointed. I just want to go and think this is a great trip to kind of do some digging on where I'm from eat some amazing food, see cool towns with my family. And if I happen to come across my birth mother or birth father, that's a bonus. I'm trying to. I mean, I can say that and totally feel a different way, but I'm trying to label that in my brain as just have no expectation. So no disappointment.
Yeah, totally.
But who knows?
I think that's a good way to approach it. That's what everybody told me to do when I first went. And my first trip was not anything like I wanted it to be when I first went. And I don't know if you've listened to that episode. I'm sure plenty of the people listening to the show know what I'm talking about, but so I won't dive into it anymore because I said a lot about it. But I think it's really difficult to curb those things. Even if I'm like you, I'm very good. I've become an expert about suppression and repressing my feelings and putting that stuff in the box, putting it under the bed. I don't have to look at that. Let me pull the floorboards up, put it down even deeper. But when you're getting ready to do something like a trip like this, I think it's really, really difficult to not find yourself putting those expectations on and to not set yourself up for disappointment. And so I applaud you for wanting to approach it that way, because even with everybody telling me from all sides, like, that's what you need to do, I still would put this on there or put that on there, whatever label you want to put it. I think for you, and I think what's really interesting too, is that you have so much of this information because you had been through a really long process to potentially set you up to go. And then I think another commendable thing is for you to pull that plug, because I think for a lot of us, especially with outside influence, feeling like we have to follow that through at that time, and for you to recognize and have the self-awareness of I ain't ready to go through this yet, I think is really, really commendable. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. Can you walk us through the process of collecting that information? Because I think it's really interesting how you have so much, that you have a plethora of it. And I think for a lot of us, or a lot of adoptees, we might go back to Korea and start that journey there. And so you're getting information while you're in the country, while you're trying to experience those things. And I think it's a different experience for someone like yourself to have that before you go, because then you can kind of belay those expectations a little bit more, because you're like, I have this and then I can go chase it a little bit later. So can you walk us through what that process was like, and kind of some of the emotions and things that you were feeling as you were receiving some of this information?
Sure. Well, I just want to say first, you gave me a lot of credit for that. And half of the credit goes to one of my best guy friends in Atlanta. He's adopted. I think he's 10 years older than I. Oh, shoot, if he's listening, I don't know. Maybe 6 to 8 years older than me.
We're not ageist on the show.
Yeah, we're not ageist on the show. It's all good.
Sorry, Quentin. Sorry, buddy.
Quentin, we love you. Come on the show.
He's the best. His story. I don't want to tell all of it in case you guys do get him, but he was like, listen, you are not ready. I know you, and this is really heavy shit. And what you're going through is really heavy shit. And I think you need to take a beat and just think about if this is what you want, these two major life happenings at one time. I was like, you know what? I think he's right. I think that this is just way too much for me all at once. And even going through the process of finding all these documents and interviewing, and the production company actually did most of it for me, which is really cool. But my dad saved everything. Every letter he wrote, he copied it and put it in a folder. Every check he copied, everything. Even if he got a copy, he would save the receipt of the copy. So I had a really thick folder, and I put all those documents on my phone, the important ones. I tend to look at them kind of often. I think they're amazing. So kind of going through it, I would get an update call from my producer. Hey, we found out this. I'm like, what? And I'd go to a coffee shop and he would, tell me all these things. She's alive. She lives in this city. You have siblings. She's married. She is 53 right now. She was obviously younger then, but this is her age. This is, we have nothing on your birth father. He doesn't want to be found. He didn't leave a birth date or a social, which I'm sorry, guys, but I kind of just don't, it doesn't, it's not as important to me to find him as it is her. From a mother to a mother, it's just really important for me to find her mostly. So that was pretty heavy to sit there and just hear about somebody else learning about my past. But it was also super exciting. It felt like a crazy journey. And when I told them that I didn't want to do it anymore after weeks and weeks of phone calls and filming, and they're like, what? I was like, so I don't think I can do it. So they went on to keep doing the show, and it's called Long Lost Family, and it's on. I think it's on TLC, but it's only domestic. But it was a really good opportunity. I just wasn't ready for. Today, awesome. I'd love to help other people find their families, but so does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it did. And I think it's interesting that they did a lot of that, or they did the legwork of collecting that information. And honestly, it makes more sense that now hearing that you stepped away, because it's almost like you had a little one step removed. Like you were one step removed from the information as it was coming in. And so I think going out and collecting that it makes it a little bit more personal, like ties. And like if you were the one that was doing all of that legwork, maybe at that time you're like, okay, I got to continue going. And I still think at the end of the day, like stepping away is commendable, because everybody expects you to go all the way and to find the answers or find no answers. And then that's the story that they want to hear. And so again, I just really appreciate you sharing, because we need to hear in our community more stories like this, where it's like, I've taken agency over this journey and I've chosen to step away. And because adoptive parents, friends, just the general public are all going to be ask you the same question probably of, well, why wouldn't you go through with it? And almost all of those people are not going to understand when you tell them, I couldn't do it at that time. Like, we can get it. Adoptees can resonate, because it's like, this journey is so personal and can be so lonely and isolating, because all of those outside people are trying to influence what you're doing, even if they don't know that's what they're doing. And so I think it's just really important that you made that decision at that time even. And now, having had years of reflection and thinking about it, like, you are in a better place to pursue. I think that's awesome. So thank you for sharing that.
And so during that time, was there any moment where you almost reached out? I mean, it's been about 10 years that you've had the information. Were there any moments where you thought, oh, maybe I should reach out? What made you decide, I guess, right now? Was it the 40th birthday milestone? Just tell us a little bit about that.
I think so. And I think that my daughter kind of struggles right now with identity. My ex-husband was half Japanese, half American. I'm obviously full Korean. And I feel like she doesn't know who she is. She doesn't have a place. And we talk about this a lot. She has a lot of Asian friends here whose parents are Asian. They speak their respective languages, and Kylie doesn't. And I think that it's going to bring us definitely closer together to do this as a mother-daughter journey. And I'm worried about time, even though she's still pretty young. I mean, 53 is young. She's not going to be that age forever. And I worry about time. I've watched every documentary on YouTube, everything on anything I can get my hands on, I have watched. And a couple of them, the parents had passed away. And that's my worst nightmare, is to just miss them, by a couple of years.
That was
so really? Oh, man.
3 years too late. Found the rest of my biological family, but not, my parents had already passed. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that feeling.
I'm scared.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I don't want to put it off any longer. I feel like if this is like on my heart and my soul to do this, what am I waiting for? Like what am I actually waiting for? I'm in a really mentally 1,000 times better spot than I was. I have a really supportive family and a really supportive husband who wants to help. So I feel like now's the time.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. I wish you great luck on that, and hopefully a follow-up so that we can hear more about it all, for sure.
I appreciate so much of your story, and I appreciate how it's like tied intricately with your journey of motherhood, and how like you're going on, like, part of this trip is to go with your daughter to go on this journey of identity together. And you wrote something in your form about how your journey has helped you really develop this sense of empathy for not only your birth mother, but birth mothers in general. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, and how, because I feel like that connection and being able to build that empathy can be really difficult for adoptees sometimes, because, there's so much complexity wrapped into what it means to be adopted and what it means to be relinquished. And a lot of that falls onto the first parents. And depending on what you read, what you watch, who you build community with, it can be really hard to build that sense of empathy. Can you walk us through that journey a little bit of how you were able to build that foundation and how that's now extended onto your relationship with your own daughter?
Well, I just know the struggles of being a teenage parent. I mean, I got pregnant at 19. She was born on my 20th birthday, so I'm not a teenage mom, but I can empathize with what she went through because I was in college, I was working, I was basically a single mother, and that was not easy. And I know a lot of people ask me, are you angry at her? Are you mad? No, I'm not mad. I think it's commendable. It's the biggest form of love to say, I can't do this. I need her to have an amazing life. And in my adoption papers, it says that she held me for 3 days and then said, I can't do it. You know, being a 15-year-old girl in a small town, never having gone to past middle school, I feel like that's a pretty mature decision. Even my 6-year-old, he just found out that I'm adopted. I mean, even though he knows my parents and I don't look anything alike, he just kind of came to that realization and he was like, does that make you sad? Are you mad at her? I'm like, no, I'm not. And he's like, well, so you have 2 moms? Does that mean you have 2 dads? I mean, it's just this whole conversation. And I just never have been the type to be angry, even from a little girl. And so becoming a mother and being a teenage sort of mother and having a baby on my own and then having 3 kids on my own and trying to do all this and make it work just gave me a lot of empathy for her. You know, I think, like we said before, I think you can only be sympathetic in situations, like true sympathy, when you've been through something, when you feel somebody else's trauma and you've felt that same thing. You know, you can feel sorry for somebody else's situation, but when you've been through it, you just truly know the hurt and the pain. Yeah, I think that's why.
It's interesting too that you have as much documentation, like you talked about, like, oh yeah, I've got like a lot of information about my birth mother or whatever. And not that like, not that any of those documents would be like her personal diary about the time that she was pregnant with you or any of that. But I think it is just like for so many adoptees, I think, especially like me, my birth parents are basically mythological creatures. And I already don't have like a strong mind's eye. So like, even when I read books, all people are just like hazy figures that like are kind of mannequin shaped. But like, when I think about my birth parents, I'm like, I can't even begin to put them into some sort of context to really garner empathy. And so I imagine it would be pretty easy to just like have your feelings and just be like, well, this is what I feel and someone should deal with it and no one's around to deal with it, you know? And so I think it's,
right.
And I mean, I also, my wife and I don't have kids yet, so I don't have like the benefit of like parenthood. But I think that like just being able to get out of your own situation and take that paradigm shift and think through, like, specifically in this case, your birth mother and her situation, it does allow for so much empathy and so much sympathy and so much just understanding. And I think one of the things that's been really interesting as you've talked and shared your story with us is I keep hearing instances where in one way or another, your life has forced people to reckon with monolithic ideas that they have about whether it's Asian Americans or whether it's adoptees or whether adoptees wrestling with like, this is how we should feel towards birth family, you know, any of that kind of stuff. And it's been really interesting to hear like just that level of complexity and that level of like just difference of experience. And it's been, it's given me a lot to think about and a lot to reflect on. What's the conversation been like with you, your husband, your children around, I think especially around being an interracial family, but like especially with the nuance of adoption, what has that conversation been like? One of the things that we say on the show is like, you are 100% you are enough. You don't have to caveat your Asianness with a but. Like, you don't have to like be like, oh, I'm not Asian, you know what I mean? And like one of the paradigm shifts for me is like, actually, if I was like 3rd generation American,
and I probably wouldn't have any understanding of like my language. I wouldn't have any understanding of the holidays or any of that kind of stuff, because it would be 3 generations removed.
Right.
That'd be like my great grandparents would have been the ones to live in Korea. So like that's me giving empathy to myself. But what have been those conversations like with your family?
Well, it's funny because when we moved to Florida after we got married, my husband, somebody said to him, "Oh, you're diluting your race," because we were having a baby. And I was like, "Wait a second, what year is it? What are you talking about?" Like, what? And I guess I just never thought of us being an interracial couple. I don't know. I just don't look at him like, "Hey, white man, Asian woman." I don't. So that was interesting because we had to sit the kids down and talk about that. And we just, I think, try to lead with love a little bit. I know that sounds kind of corny, but those people obviously don't know what they're talking about, and they don't have this wide, vast knowledge of what's going on in the world around them. So we just kind of have to, they're like, just let them do them kind of thing. I haven't felt that here in San Diego, that weird interracial couple thing, but that's kind of our only time that happens. Well, that's a lie. We were in West Virginia. Matt was working for the Greenbrier. Have you guys heard of the Greenbrier? Like a golf resort.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They have like the bunker underneath they built for the Congress. Anyways, he was there and I was like, "Where did you bring me?" Right. And we walked up and everyone was staring at me and the baby. And I was like, "What the heck?" And everyone asked me if I was Michelle Wee. So finally, I just started saying, "Yes, I am Michelle Wee." Like it was just, so those are the 2 main times I can think of where us being interracial has been an issue. They were looking at him like, "Why did you bring her?" kind of thing. It's just an open-ended conversation with the kids. I think they always ask and we just kind of answer honestly, but we do try to tell them, sometimes people just don't know and it's their ignorance and things may come out that don't sound great, but they maybe just don't know. I think we all maybe have experienced that growing up with white parents. People just don't know how to talk about these situations and ask questions in the correct form.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you said you could pick it out because you are adopted and you saw another family that had an Asian. You're like, "Oh, they must be adopted." But I don't know how many times in my family I've been asked, "Oh, so how do you guys know each other?" They thought we were just friends on a vacation or something like that.
They're like fast friends. Yeah, we just met.
Met on a booze cruise.
I picked up these white people on the way here.
I mean, I think it does start with ignorance. And I think what happens a lot of times is the next interaction and the interaction that follows. Like, is that person actively learning? Are they changing their language? Are they trying to have a different nuanced conversation or at least reframe their perspective? And that's when you see that's when people show you who they are. There are people that show you who they are right up front, and they ain't afraid to be, bigoted and racist and homophobic, transphobic, whatever it is, just hateful in general. But I think a lot of people, especially like for me, with my parents, it was a lot of conversations. Like, they voted for Donald Trump in 2016, like hardcore conservative Republican. And like, this was pre coming to consciousness for me. And I was like, "Oh, we about to have a real rocky relationship now." And then like, to think that we would be able to even get past that point, there was a certain time in my life, like, there's no way. I thought there was no way we're going to be able to come back for this. And we slowly did. And then as I've gone on this journey, I've watched my parents grow and change and learn. And that's because a lot of it is layered in ignorance. When you grow up in a predominantly white town of 5,000 people and there are no other people, there is rare minimum access to anything outside of white culture. Like, that's what you're going to know. And you have to be willing to learn and go through that. And maybe sometimes that is you find yourself in a family that looks different than the normal Midwestern family that you see around you all the time. And even then, maybe it's going to take 30 years before you even really start to go down that path. But I think, I wouldn't say we have to, but it behooves us a little bit to meet people with compassion at first and then allow people the opportunity to grow. Because sometimes, when we can be really protective of our own stories and our own identities and who we are. And it can be really hard to meet folks with compassion. And I think deservedly so, because we have not been shown that same compassion for a long time. Yeah. And when we finally get a chance to own our stories and our identities, it's like, okay, this is mine and I don't have time for you to not get it. And hopefully, at a certain point, people will get it. And I do think that they do to a certain degree. But are we willing to come back to the table and meet them? Sometimes we're not. But sometimes we are. And that can lead to real growth and change in I think, positive ways. So I appreciate you naming that. I think that's really important.
I mean, even with my own parents, they called me Oriental until like 3 years ago.
Damn.
And I kept telling them, guys, that's a really derogatory term. Like, we got to stop doing that, And I grew up in Georgia, Stone Mountain, where they use the N-word a lot. Not my parents, luckily, but all their friends use the N-word all the time. We'd be checking out groceries and be like, the blank bagged my groceries. I'd be standing right there. Like, how do you not know that that's even offensive to me? Even being like an 8-year-old little girl standing there, I'm like, I'm also different. How is that okay? So me trying to educate my parents is still happening. And they were just here in April, I think it was. And my mom, for the first time, I'm almost 40, right? First time, she said, I'm sorry that we didn't do right by you and let you know what your culture was like when you were young. And that's like monumental for my family. They don't talk about it. They don't admit wrong. It's just it is what it is. So I think that's good. They're almost 80 years old. My parents adopted me late and they're almost 80. And I think a lot of people are set in their ways. It's hard to be compassionate to those people. But if they're willing to listen and open their mind a little bit, they can change. I never thought my mom would say that to me in a million years. And I had to come to the realization growing up, they're not bad people. They just don't know. And once I came to that, I lived a much happier life. I could have a relationship with them and be okay with them in my life. And that was quite the journey to come to that. But they only know what they know.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's big too that they've shown signs of change. Like, I always say, people will be like, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm like, you can't teach an unwilling dog new tricks, but you can teach any dog a new trick. You know what I mean? Like, for me, it's more just like, why would you not pursue being better whenever you can? Like, at some point you get tired, and I get that, but like, that doesn't let you off the hook, But yeah, I think that's really good to hear, because you don't always get stories about, especially I think adoptive parents being like, oh yeah, I'm willing to admit fault. I'm willing to make a change and just apologize. Just be like, I mean, even if you don't like, if you, the adoptee, has come to a place of being like, yeah, they didn't know, just like that apology goes so far in terms of like what type of relationship you can have down the road. And I think that's huge.
Well, when I got divorced, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Well, when I got divorced, they, being so Catholic, they kind of let me and the kids on our own. They didn't really help. We were kind of on our own. And so I think I went through those motions of abandonment again. Nobody's here for me. I'm on my own. And so I had to put some boundaries up with them for many years. And they weren't in my life for a long time. And I think that that's kind of what jolted them into looking for change, talking to people. They prayed about it a lot. And now we finally are talking and having a good relationship again. I think because I set up those boundaries. Like, you will not treat me like this. And it made me feel this way. And until you can make me feel this way, we can't have a relationship. It's tough to do your own family, but I think it's beneficial if you want peace in your own life, your own family.
Well, when there's love, then you're like, oh, this feels really bad. And I want it to be different. And even though I have to, eat crow or whatever, I'm going to have to, because I love you and I want to be with you. Yeah, I totally hear that. I think you said your 19-year-old daughter was the one who was like super into Korean stuff. What's as you've been adjacent to her, just going hard into Korean culture, what's the thing that you're like, oh, this is the most interesting bit of culture that I want to learn about?
Oh gosh. Well, I've learned a lot about the food.
Yeah.
which is really cool. Can I to the opposite end first?
Sure.
The most concerning thing to me is how all of the girls look alike and all of the surgeries they get. That's concerning to me as a mother because those are her idols, right?
Right.
So I'm trying to say it's okay to be tan. It's okay to not be 90 pounds. You know, it's okay to not have a nose job at 16 years old. You know, so that part I have a really big problem with. But now learning about skincare, which has become widely popular these days, Korean skincare, and just Korean culture in general, the way that they are so observant of their ancestors and of adults, this is not something we have here. That's fantastic. I wish our kids were more respectful to adults. And just I think just the culture in general, I really want to learn everything. So going there, I want to spend a lot of time just immersing myself in it, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Does that make any sense?
Specifically the food you said.
Yeah. Definitely the street food or the food. I'll just eat my way.
I didn't even think about the street food.
Yeah,
well, we can't offer you those things, but what we can offer you is a little taste of Korea by way of prepackaged snack. So we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to jump into one of those tasty, delicious prepackaged snacks. So we'll see you in a second.
Welcome back to the Janchi Show. It is time for a snacky time. Thank you, Katie, so much for joining us for the snack. Now, I mean, this is great. We love it when we can share a little bit of food with our guests. So I'm glad that we have this, and it's one that we've had before, but I've just been noticing every time I've gone to H Mart and stuff that they have a lot of new flavors and a lot of different things that I want to try. And so I think it's good to revisit some of the snacks that we have, including this one, which is Pepero BioThe. So, and if people who don't know what Pepero is, it's the little chocolate covered biscuit sticks that, you know, the Japanese form is Pocky. You may have seen that one too.
The Japanese form is Pocky. We leave
Pocky,
it to our listeners.
Koreans call Pepero.
Yeah,
these look delicious, by the way.
The debate.
Yeah, but I don't know how many flavors there are.
There's a lot.
Yeah,
but I look at the tagline: "Say hello with Pepero."
I think that's new.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that last time.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so cute. It's on every box.
It is really cute. I also noticed on the bottom corner of ours, it has the 2020 number one brand.
Literally just looking at that
from like the Nielsen point of sales ratings. I didn't know that Nielsen operated in Korea, but all right, cool.
All right, let me check, make sure that's not expired because of that 2020 label. All right, we're good.
We're going through our snacks fairly well. So we bought sesame white. What flavors do you have, Katie?
Crunchy.
Is it crunky? Is it crunchy? We don't know. It's somewhere in between.
We know it's arguably the best flavor.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one is definitely my favorite, but I actually really like sesame, so I'm excited when I saw this one, and I thought it was good to try it, even though it is not Pepero Day 11/11.
Does yours have crunchy bits on it?
Right.
On the outside?
It does. It has crunchy bits of sesame, which I can only assume will be, it's like little sesame seeds and white chocolate. So
okay, I was wondering what that white was. I'm like, I was getting a little encouraged. I was like, that might be chocolate.
It is.
Mine is all melted together because Texas. So
go Texas.
I can't break
delicious.
them apart. I don't want to crumb my pants is the thing. So
mine are also melted together in not uniform fashion.
Now I can only assume that I sent these to you guys during a heat wave, maybe. And
it's hot here in Indiana.
The summer, so
blame the U.S. Postal Service.
People, for some reason, think we don't get humidity out here. It is very humid all the time.
Those are delicious.
Oh man!
Oh my goodness!
So you have never had these before, Katie?
No. I haven't.
Nice. Have you had Pocky before?
I have.
Okay.
At the checkout at H Mart.
Okay. What do you think about these versus Pocky?
Way better chocolate.
Nice.
Pocky chocolate kind of tastes dirty a little bit to me.
Yeah, it's a little bland.
Right? This is way better.
I agree.
Way better.
Okay, so
interesting.
Sesame, I love sesame. I am Does anybody eat sesame sticks?
What?
No.
No? It's like a little cracker that's sometimes in a mix.
Actually, yes.
Oh,
I
I
have
have.
sesame sticks before.
There's some,
Okay,
they're like
that's-
rectangle.
like rectangle. Yeah, sometimes wavy
yeah.
rectangle or whatever. That's what
Yeah.
the flavor of this kind of reminds me. It's crunchy, but with the chocolate, I guess, added to it. But it kind of reminds me of that.
That sounds delicious.
I could go for more chocolate, TBH.
You could always go for more.
I don't love eating it in like one lump like this.
Oh, yeah. That's probably too much for sure. I feel like one stick is a little bit too much sesame, to be honest.
Yeah, so I wish I could break it apart, but I literally can't. So
I'm just pulling it apart in tiny, tiny pieces because that's all I can do.
This tastes like a Nestle bar. What is it called? The Crunch Bar.
Crunch bar. I wonder that's
now
where
I'm
they
just
got
jealous that you have the good flavors.
you got the crunky.
I have four
we wanted
more.
to try something different, guys.
I know.
We can't all eat crunky, although there's lots of crunky flavored things out there. So, so that flavor of the crunch and everything, you can get it in a cookie form. I think they have a wafer form. I even saw they had Pepero ice cream bars now too. Yeah. Go
How do
check
I
your
not
H
know?
Well,
I know.
do not send us those.
If your chocolate bar is melting, I don't think your ice cream has a chance.
Well,
Do you guys cook any Korean food at home?
They do.
Yeah, Nathan maybe cooks the most Korean food of us. I have made a version of kimchi bokkeumbap or kimchi fried rice. And then just recently, my wife and I tried a recipe out of Eric Kim's cookbook, Korean American. It was like a pork plus quick green onion kimchi, which was good. So, but that's one of my goals for like, I don't know, the next 12 months is just to make more Korean foods. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to. I definitely cook the least. I tried to make kimbap once, unmitigated disaster.
He said,
and that really just made me feel inadequate and unequipped to make it. But I'm also like, I have the least amount of access to like actual Korean ingredients and like ingredients to make the kinds of Korean dishes that I want to. Not that I couldn't per se, but I feel like you guys have a little bit more. I don't know. Stuff.
Right. What is there?
I'm making tonkatsu tonight for dinner.
Oh, tonkatsu?
Yeah.
Tonkatsu. Nice.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. No, I mean the amount, don't let them fool you. I cook a little bit of Korean food, but not anything compared to the amount of Korean cookbooks I own. I should be cooking for feasts of people out here, but for some reason
feasts of people.
Janchi of people.
Janchis of people.
Yes. I think I have 5 cookbooks, and I think I cook like, I don't know, I've cooked one thing out of each of them. So
that's good though.
I need to branch out more and same for me though, as far as the accessibility. I do have an H Mart, so I luckily can get to the store and get some supplies. But my kids are probably not the most adventurous sometimes when it comes to some of the types of Korean foods, because so they do have some spice or they have just a lot of flavor. My wife and I love it, but my kids are still saying no thank you to kimchi.
Hot dogs and mac and cheese.
No kimchi for me. That's a good book, by the way. So it's one of children's books.
You got to put kimchi on like a hot dog.
Oh,
what?
Ooh, that
nice.
sounds good.
That's an off-air conversation.
Oh, okay.
It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Well, anyways, back to the Pepero. Well, our version is the sesame white. Katie, you just tried the crunky, but we'll let you jump in. I think anecdotally, I feel like our past ratings are probably like 4s and 5s for crunky. But what do you give crunky out of 5?
Probably a 4.5.
Okay. What would take it to that? What would take it to that 5?
Honestly, I'd love it if it was fused together like you guys'.
One
you could
giant
just put it all in
of
your
crunky
mouth at one time.
Instead of having to keep reaching, if I could just have like one giant wafer of goodness.
Candy bar person. I like it.
Yeah.
I feel you.
It's totally true.
Nice.
I feel you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, they were good.
Nathan, you were super excited about Sesame White. How did you feel about the flavor?
Yes. So I do love sesame. I would say it is about what I expected. It's not too overly sesame, which is something that I was a little fearful of because, there's different types of sesame oils, and I feel some sesame oils really just like are overpowering, especially if you use too much.
How fearful do you think you were?
So what?
How fearful do you think you were?
I was shaking in my seat. That's why you heard the creaking of my chair. No, I would say this is good to the expectation that I had. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I still like Crunky better. So that would be still my favorite. And I would say this one's up there with like the strawberry flavor for me. So
that's what I have next.
Nice. All right.
What I have
about
next.
you, Patrick?
I give it a 4 too. I've ate all of mine. I just consistently continue to put it in my mouth and felt like the chocolate. I felt like at first the sesame was way stronger than the chocolate, but as I continued to eat and eat, the chocolate definitely superseded
as I
the
finished
sesame.
the box.
Yeah, as I finished my box,
giant melted bar.
Yeah, I mean, I had no choice. It was just all one piece. I had to keep eating.
I like that you were like, yeah, honestly, I just kind of turned my brain off and kept eating. And I found that I liked it.
I was just listening to y'all talk, and I was just like, I'm going to keep eating these. Hold the mic up to my mouth while I crunch. So I give it a 4. I felt like the sesame was really powerful at first. But again, like as I continued to eat, I felt like it kind of balanced out. And honestly, I thought it was a pretty good flavor. So 4 out of 5 would eat again.
I'm going to give mine a 3. I think it was fine, not amazing. I don't love sesame, which is surprising given that kosomi crackers are my favorite of all the Korean snacks we've had. But I don't love it in this form. There was like a weird taste or smell in it that I don't know if it's because it was fused together. I did see that the box said store in a cool, dry place between 64 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Joke's on you. It's been over 100 for like 27 days in a row. So that was never going to win down here. So maybe it's a heat fusion situation that caused it to be less than ideal. But yeah, I thought it was fine. White chocolate is also not my favorite. So 3 for me.
How dare you not like white chocolate?
I liked it a lot more when I was a kid. And then as I've grown up, I just prefer like basically 100% dark chocolate.
That's some dark chocolate.
I mean, yeah, like basically anything like in the 70 to 80 range.
Oh, even
is
that
like ideal for me.
I'm in like the 60s
big fan of that
range. But
I'm like, it has sugar in it? Great. Let me put it in my body. In large, unnecessary amounts. No problem.
straight cacao.
Wait, what?
Straight cacao.
Oh, I thought you said straight from the cow. I'm like, wait, what?
That's where sugar comes from, right?
I didn't realize.
Well,
something new.
I have to look for the brown cows because that's where the chocolate.
That's where the chocolate milk comes from. Yeah. Them brown cows. I know that.
I thought you were going to say that's where the brown sugar comes from.
Oh, right. That too.
It's fine. All right.
Oh, that's fine.
And the polka dotted ones, sometimes chocolate chips. But okay, so
What are we talking
we have
about?
our ratings. Again, Katie, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your story with us and our listeners. If anyone would like to reach out to you or talk to you and in San Diego, how can they reach you?
Instagram. You can reach out on my Instagram handle. I'm on there a lot, I feel like. It's at katie.ginella. That's probably the best way. Yeah.
We've got a follow-up for your trip to Korea next year.
Yeah, so we're plugging the future Janchi Show.
Yes, the
episode.
Future episode.
Yes.
275. Get back.
Perfect.
I don't know if that'll be that one, but that seems like 140. No, that's way too many.
I don't know. With
Episode 200.
Schedule,
Episode 200.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Episode 200. All right, putting us on the spot. So, folks, if you want to follow along and reach out to Katie, you can do that at katie.ginella. We'll also have that linked down here in our show notes. If you want to connect with us on Instagram, you can do so at Janchi Show, as well as any other social media platform, I believe, including Facebook, where we have the Janchi Show after party. I think. I have no idea if that's still active. I'm not in there.
It's technically still around.
It exists. It's fine.
And I found you guys on TikTok.
We're on TikTok? We're on TikTok at Janchi Show, I'm assuming. I am on TikTok. Wait, I don't know.
Maybe that's why.
I'm in places that I don't want to be, and it's fine. If you want to reach out to us because you can't find us somewhere, but you need to send us a message, you can do so via email to janchishow@gmail.com. You can also leave us a voicemail at 972-677-8867. If you want to support the show in any way, you can go to our website, janchishow.com. There is a store. There is a support tab. There's all the episodes if you want to catch up and listen to everything that we've talked about. And if you like what you listen to while you're doing that catch up, we would really appreciate it if you left us a rating or review on whatever player that you're listening to this on currently. What else? I think that's it. If you want to find me, you can do so at Patrick in the World, wherever I want to be found on the internet.
I am at KJ Roelke online, wherever I want to be found.
And I am Nowak on Instagram and Nathan Nowak on Facebook.
Nathan is on Facebook, the only member moderating the Janchi Show after party. So please go join Nathan in the after party.
Lonely. He needs friends.
Up our engagement. Katie, again, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your story. Really excited to have you back for episode 200 when we have some resolution to some of the things and threads and plot lines that we've established here. For everyone else, until next time, Janchi.
Heyo.